I definitely wasn't exceptional at any one thing. I definitely felt when I was applying to college that I might be like decent at a bunch of different things, but I never felt like, oh wow, I'm like really good at this one thing.
Hey everyone, welcome to the College Lead YouTube channel. My name is Kristen. I'm here to help you perfect your college application process. Today we have a very special guest, Raymond Tang. He's actually my classmate back from Harvard, and he is here to tell you some tips on how you can write your college essays. So Raymond, how about you get started with introducing yourself?
Hi everybody. I was actually a classmate of Kristen's from Harvard. We were in the same year, and we knew each other. Yeah, we've known each other since freshman year of college. So I'm excited to be here on the channel. I majored in neuroscience, and I got a last minute minor in economics my senior year. So I graduated December of 2019. So I've been out of school for just over a year now. And I'm currently working as a management consultant in Los Angeles.
What extracurriculars did you do in high school? And then after that, we can hop to college essays.
I had a pretty unique experience. I attended a boarding school. Gave me a good chance to learn how to be independent and learn how to live like an adult by myself at age 14, which is obviously a challenge at first, but I think it really helped me learn a lot of life skills that are things that people might learn in the first couple of years of college. I go on this tangent because I think a lot of my extracurriculars were shaped by my experience attending a boarding school for high school. For instance, one of my main things that I was involved in on campus was being we call them prefects, but they're essentially RAs, basically people who managed the dorms, made sure people were checking into dorms on time. Like everybody on campus was like a minor. Most people were under 18, so it was really important to be safe and to have nightly check-ins to make sure people were on campus and not like sneaking out and stuff like that. So it was a lot of responsibility to have at a young age, and I think that was one of my major time commitments on campus was that role. And I did that for junior year, and then senior year I became the head RA. So then I think kind of leveling that up a little bit. Like you can get involved in a bunch of different things as long as you you progress in it and that you actually like it. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's a trend right now with a lot of students feeling like they need to be a national level something or really develop a strong skill set. But what I'm hearing from you is there's actually another path, which is just pretty simple. Find what you're interested in and then grow within that. Would you say that was the case for you?
I think so. Like I definitely wasn't exceptional at any one thing. I definitely felt when I was applying to college that I might be like decent at a bunch of different things, but I never felt like, oh wow, I'm like really good at this one thing. I understand where that's coming from because going to Harvard and knowing so many people, and even before Harvard, just knowing some people who were like I thought were outstanding at some really like great at one thing, and they were like nationally ranked at something. I'd be like, wow, I wish I was like that. And it kind of made me feel anxious and uneasy that like comparing myself to them, I'd be like, wow, I don't have like something about me that's so special. Like you can't really help that at this point, right? If you're like in high school already and you're applying to colleges, you're thinking about applying to colleges next year or in the next couple of years. I feel like to get to that point where you're like nationally ranked at something, it's gonna take many years of work. So I feel like it doesn't really help to start that process now. But what you can do, I think, is to really figure out what you enjoy and just do it.
I think that's really great advice, especially in terms of focusing on your own growth and your own interests, because there always be other people who are better at a particular skill than you, especially when you get to the level of Harvard. I feel like that was definitely a struggle that I experienced as well. Wait, so then I'm really curious if you feel like you didn't have a particular, obviously you RA was one of your, it sounds like main time commitments, but it doesn't sound like there was a particular skill that you worked for 10 plus years on developing from middle school to high school. So how did you stand out or make yourself stand out in the college application process?
I think, throughout my application and like my essays and stuff, I really tried to write things that were really true to my voice. Like just do what is most natural to you. I feel like that's such cliche advice, but it's only going to be easier if you just do what makes sense to you.
You mentioned earlier that you really tried to identify what your unique voice was and just write whatever was true to you. So, how did you figure out what your voice was and then find a story that
Yeah.
can emphasize that the most?
I'm thinking back on it, I wrote like a bunch of drafts. I wrote like a bunch of things that I try to paint, that like basically trying to brag, like painting myself in a really good light. Like, oh, I'm so cool. I did this. Like, here's my, like, I'm so humble. I'm so like, this is my personality. Like, I'm so cool. Um, and I like after reading, like I wrote them and I read them and I was like, this kind of sucks. I probably wrote like 10 of those, honestly. Got to thinking about like, I don't like these essays that are basically just me bragging. What can I write about that kind of shows like something I've learned or that shows my personality to like somebody who might not know me. So I'm writing a bunch of stuff about me being good at stuff and it's not coming off like genuine. So why don't I write about something that about me being bad at things and it would probably come off a lot more genuine. Yeah, the year before I joined cross country for the first time at my school, I was like super overweight. I was like 250 pounds and I had lost like 100 pounds since then, but um, like that was like a big like process for me and learning how to be bad at cross country and like be kind of like the laughing stock coming in last place all the time. That was kind of like my theme. I was like, okay, well, I can write about how being in last place in cross country kind of taught me more than like doing well and at like academically or winning competitions or whatever. Yeah, so being last could teach you a lot more than being in first place. And oftentimes like the best lessons you learn are from failing. And I think it came off a lot more genuine. It came off a lot more me. Do your best to write something that you would be proud of, and that's all you can hope for.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And kind of piggybacking off of that, it sounds like first find your unique voice. I love how you describe the process of writing those 10 different drafts and each one of them highlighted an achievement that you've had, because I'm sure you had many, but it not coming across as natural. So then you thought, why don't I write about a failure instead? And I think that gets to my second point, which is your college essay doesn't have to be all flowery and talk about only the best parts of your life. Sometimes if you talk about the challenges in your life, there's more that you learn from that experience and there's more that you can share about yourself in that experience. I think you are getting to a pretty good point though in terms of that mixture of finding your voice and then writing about an experience that was particularly meaningful to you, because I think the combination of those two is essentially what will make a really strong college essay. But it has to be whatever is actually true to you, because if you keep writing about purely accomplishments and everything being rainbows and flowers and I won this and I worked hard at this and I ended up succeeding, it's great, but there's likely been times where you experience challenges that are actually more memorable and that reveal more about yourself and probably your own strengths in getting through that time, that are better to write about because that shows more about you. And I guess a quick note to any listeners, the college essay is like a time to talk about who you are and to share that with admission officers. You have the extracurricular activities list, the honors list, the additional information section. That's where you can brag and say, I did X, Y, and Z. I did all these activities and I won all these awards and honors. It's really the essay portion where you start talking about, here's who I actually am and what I'm like underneath all those accomplishments. And so I really want to add a +1 to Raymond's advice in terms of identifying like who you are, what your unique voice is, and then just keep trying with many different stories and figure out what is feels right to you in terms of your own experience.
When I was applying to college, I remember like trying to search for examples of what people were writing, like that got like that I liked. I found some examples, and all the ones I resonated with were I think about challenges that people went through and the lessons they've learned, or if they just went through a really unique situation and they were sharing it. And it could be personal, it could be not, but I felt like, wow, this is a good college essay. I want to write something like this when it was very personal and when it was a very challenging experience that they went through. And that's not to say like it has to be like a sad story. It could be like a happy story. For example, my story where I talked about being last in cross country. That's obviously a sad thing, kind of, but I put a happy spin on it. I was talking about how I learned so much more from doing that. I was learning how to be comfortable with myself and my body. I was learning that it's okay to learn from being last place. That's like a good starting point for anybody is to think about what experiences have shaped them the most. Maybe even make like a little list and see, just writing a draft for all of them. The ones that speak the most to you probably might be good contenders.
One other thing I want to point out, because a lot of students have been asking me this question as well, is I know there's several people, for instance, who want to go to medical school or be pre-med. And so they feel like they have to write about a biology related essay. But I think it's very telling how you wrote about potentially like one of the newest extracurriculars you did, because you mentioned you just started running in junior year. You were last place, so it's not like you had many honors to speak of, but you still wrote about the experience because you learned a lot from it and it was like true to your experience. And obviously it went well because you got into Harvard. Any last bits of advice for high schoolers, particularly seniors right now who may be watching this?
For the whole process, I'm definitely somebody who I think was pretty anxious about applying to college. I would just say, okay, calm down a little bit.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. You'll get into college and then it'll be okay.
Yeah. I also know that both of us are quite privileged because we're saying as Harvard graduates, whatever college you get into will be fine. But seriously, we actually mean it in terms of college is not the final step. There's a lot more that comes into that. And everyone's experience at whatever college you go to is very different. Your college experience is what you will make it become. So the work doesn't end after college applications. It continues.
And I think a really bright person who, like, no matter what school they go to, they will be a bright person and they will be very successful outside of college and in college, no matter where they go to college.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you so much, Raymond. I really appreciate your time.
No problem.